Jonathan Mayers, steroids and domestic assault. If this story doesn't sound good, it's because it isn't. Jonathan Mayers just got convicted in trial for abusing his girlfriend on Monday. And you may not know this man, but he's employed by the infamous Marvel Studios in Walt Disney. Or I should say he was, because at this point they've already recasted 5 people for his potential roles in the future, and quite literally ditched his ass as fast as possible. Mayers has been in many movies and series like Loki, Ant-Man, and Wasp, whatever that garbage ass movie was. I honestly don't know what it was. So this guy is a heavy hitter as far as actors go. But let's dive deep into the situation that's currently happening and talk more about the domestic assault / steroid abuse allegations going on right now. Monday, Mayers was convicted of a case of reckless assault, but oddly enough not intended assault, nor was he found guilty of aggravated assault, and I don't understand how this works in the United States law, but my imagination was he had some pretty good lawyers, so they got really witty with the classification of each of these forms of assault and got him the probably least effective one, which is reckless assault, which from my understanding of the definition is just that he wasn't really aware of his bodily movement and accidentally hurt someone, from what I understand. However, you can see in this video that he quite literally chased her down, picked her ass up, and threw her in the caddy like a murder scene. But also, to be fair, she chased after him too, and apparently she was drunk and wanted to steal his phone because he had some girl's number in there that she didn't recognize. In some scenes, he was literally running away, trying to keep her from taking his phone, doing as much as crossing the streets in Manhattan during a very busy hour of traffic. Now here's the real question. Obviously, this is a cringy and toxic relationship at its finest, but it's not really what I'm here to give commentary about. But what I want to know is, why did Jonathan Mayers make this hasty decision in handling this woman? There are steroid allegations as of right now, not saying that's something he's going to be convicted of at all, but it's something that is out there and people are writing articles about it. And he mentions he's a great man and deserves a very great woman, very publicly says that.
I'm a great man, a great man. I am doing great things, not just for me, but for my culture and for the world. That is actually the position I'm in. The woman that supports me needs to be a great woman.
And I want to dive in a little bit deeper to see what is this great man doing behind the scenes to get the best roles in Hollywood. So bear with me, we're going to take a bit of a detour to check out his physique and sort of his training methodology, and then we'll come full circle and talk more about domestic abuse, which is a very weird topic, but also the correlation with steroid abuse. You can see this man is absolutely yoked, like seriously brimmed up. However, if you needed more proof that he's cooked to the gills, of course he's on Men's Health YouTube channel, because they just pick up everybody at this point. So let's check out the video and see what's going on. So you can see that this guy is stacked for a dude who plays a villain in almost every role. But let's be honest, we all want to be a little bit of a villain.
And here we are with friend, brother, trainer, Mark Reynolds Smith. This is the guy that covers it.
So, of course, he has the self-proclaimed professional guru of ultimate workouts to get Hollywood actors jacked. Y'all have to know by now that when a dude gets on screen and says he has the keys to the best workout, that he is literally just a placeholder. And I will say another thing. Why do people continuously hire these nameless coaches to get absolutely insane results when there's wonderful information out there like Renaissance Periodization's channel, and how literally you can develop a whole training program that takes probably about 5 to 10 minutes of content viewing, and it will be better than any training program that any of these lousy ass Hollywood trainers will be able to give you. And like, seriously, how much does this guy charge? Like, I would imagine several thousand a session depending on his clientele, where you could literally do that for free. And I don't care how rich you are. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. Get better results for none of the price. I mean, why not do that?
This is lat pull downs, but sometimes I might say 10 more, then Jay, because of his mindset, will do another 20.
Then to top it off, he's just laughing. He puts on a hard face and breathes tough like he's actually training really hard, but just ends up laughing and smiling mid-set. And again with these supersets, what the fuck are these? We know for certain that they aren't nearly as productive as straight sets when it relates to building muscle. Now, you can use them, certainly, and if you're trying to save time, they're a great solution because it can shorten the length of duration you're at the gym. But for most people who have plenty of time, like a professional actor who gets paid to do nothing outside of look amazing and practices acting, would have an excess amount of time, you have the ability to afford the extra time it would take to do straight sets. But you know this homie's not in a rush to go anywhere. Like, he can slow things down and do very meticulous, critical thinking type of sets.
Now we're going to go straight to pull-ups, which will give him his size, his thickness, and his depth and his lats. Now we're going straight into the exercise, which is close grip.
And then he does pull-ups, like the typical Hollywood actor, hard boy type workout. Can we just acknowledge that you don't need to do pull-ups to be tough or strong? In fact, a pull-down variation would likely achieve him a greater results with the ability to go closer to muscular failure and specifically targeting the muscle that he actually wants, a direct contraction to the lats or mid-back, whatever he's trying to train here.
Hold. Slowly down. 1, 2, 3. Now we go. Listen. 8.
And the leg raises.
Our third and final superset is one-arm dumbbell rows. That'll give him his bread and butter.
Now he's doing a dumbbell row. This one's pretty good until they supersetted it and jacked up his spinal position and, you know, whatever. The trainer knows best, right? He's the Hollywood trainer. Anyways, I'm not here to judge this guy's training outside of just poking some fun at him. He's in the gym trying. Kudos to him. What I am here to talk about, though, is steroid use, which the sauce is real in this one. Is Mayers taking the Trenbolone sandwiches? Look, folks, let's be real. As you know, Hollywood actors or professional athletes, really anybody in the field, the industry is riddled with steroid use, which personally I have zero problem with. I want my superheroes jacked. I want the guy who's going to destroy the world to look like he could destroy the world. I don't want a skin and bones guy who looks depraved of nutrition to be the guy that I'm concerned about in a movie. Nobody watches anime for fat protagonists. I can't think of a single anime that doesn't have a jacked, insane human being or at least a robot in it. But anyways, what cycle could Jonathan Mayers be running? Well, I would imagine with his current physique, generally he has a bit of a puffier face and he seems to be able to maintain a pretty lean physique, at least year round from what we're able to see online and his posting trends. So with those things considered, I would say he's probably running true medical grade TRT most of the year, like actual prescribed testosterone replacement therapy from a paid physician. However, this would typically be a dose of testosterone which would be administered intramuscularly about once to twice a week, depending on how in the know the doctor he goes to is, of about 100 to 150 milligrams. Quite low, but that is the physiological range. Now, I would imagine that when he's leading up to some bigger roles, especially like his Creed role, I would think he'd probably increase that dose a little bit, maybe going super physiological up to the 200 to maybe even 250 milligram range. Also, in conjunction with that, he might be throwing in some oral compounds to get a momentary change in physical look. If you are lean enough and start taking oral compounds, you're not only going to get like more nitrogen and glycogen retention, which make you appear fuller, but mineralocorticoids change in your skin and suddenly the composition of your body looks just a slight bit different, but on the premise that you're already lean enough for that kind of thing to happen. And obviously that would be wildly benefit for a role he's playing that includes him with mostly his shirt off. But would this lead to anger and violence being a highly volatile issue? I'm going to try to dismantle this as much as possible because I think it's really, really important to talk about. For one, to create less stigma around steroid use. For two, I think the decriminalization of what you do with your body is a very, very valid and realistic movement in the United States. Nonetheless, I do want to kind of talk about what people have as a stigma against steroid use, why it might be incorrect, but also correct in some cases. Now, I think people tend to have this feeling that when you use steroids, you turn into this mega roid rage, angry type of dude. This is really not the case in practical experience. If anyone knows someone who is running a little bit of the Stazul, they usually are not awful people. In fact, they're usually really, really nice people. But we do have great studies like this one, which goes into great detail about long-term steroid use being associated with right amygdala enlargement, reduced right amygdala resting state functional connectivity, and dorsal anterior cingulate cortex neurochemical abnormalities with glutamate turnover, which all correlate to certain psychiatric effects and cognitive issues. As well, this study touches on the fact that 4 million people are reported to use steroids every single year, but likely that is wildly underreported, which I of course imagine this is the case. So it's not a small issue. The cognitive decline that can potentially happen from steroid use and abuse isn't looking good, and the amygdala, as we know it, is part of that emotional drive center. It's involved in processing and aggression and spatial memory. And it's, again, one of the main components which we can see time and time again using research done on humans that have used and abused steroids for at least 5 years, that the amygdala is the most affected part of the brain when it comes to steroid abuse. Now, one caveat to this, because certainly that could influence aggression, is what else were those people doing in their life? Because, again, they didn't follow them around for 5 to 10 years. They just took them at their word and said, yes, I abused steroids for 5 years, but what else was going on in their lifestyle? Were they drinking a lot? Because drinking does the same exact thing, but even to a worser degree with the same brain regions. Were they using a lot of other drugs, specifically like dopaminergic drugs, amphetamines, cocaine, things of that nature? Because also those do affect the same regions too. So it's not perfect, but it does give us some insight that there's potential for risks like this to accumulate when someone is using a lot of gear. But here's the catch though. Research has shown simply increasing testosterone levels doesn't automatically lead to increase in aggression. Instead, it's thought that testosterone acts as more of a facilitator and an amplifier to currently existing or pre-existing aggressive tendencies, mood disorders, or any other sort of behavioral complexes. Individual factors like personality, life experiences, childhood upraising have more of an integral role to play with aggression and behavioral disorders with higher testosterone levels than testosterone itself. So while testosterone or its derivatives can certainly influence anger and aggression, they are not the sole proprietor to it. See, if you take someone who has a natural predisposition to anger or aggression, and they likely have had that their whole life, and add a lot of testosterone to the situation, you've now created a abomination. Someone who is rude, someone who does roid rage, someone who is a general asshole. But if you give the monk down the street who doesn't talk and has vows of silence for 3 months an injection of testosterone, he might likely turn more stoic than aggressive, because that's his predetermined sort of psychology that's already there. It amplifies who you are in a sense. As well as me, I've been in this sport for years. I work with people all across the world, hand in hand, going through their certain protocols as professional athletes, not just bodybuilders, but powerlifters, strongmen, MMA fighters, golfers, I mean, you name it. And I've watched the amount of positive things that can be as an outcome from being on steroids and other anabolic hormones. And in fact, these people are the nicest people I've met, sharing their resources with me unlimitedly, almost putting themselves at a disposition so that another person can be at a higher place, giving their homes to me, giving food to me, being very charitable human beings, more so than what I would consider to be normal people. What I do see though is people who have short tempers usually get shorter fuses on higher doses of gear. Individuals with a proclivity for violence will choose violence on more gear. And when I say gear, that's just nomenclature for steroid use. So how does this all relate to Mares? I don't know if his criminal past is really prolific. I couldn't find anything that was relevant. However, it does seem that he has no history of violence from what I can tell. In fact, it seems like he's a pretty normal guy up until this particular situation. And it is possible that steroids could have driven the physical aggression that he had with this female. Yet in my book, I certainly don't see that as the case. I see this more as just a really toxic relationship with two people who were drunk on a night out. And by the way, drinking increases aggression and changes the architecture of one's brain far more than any steroid would do by a large margin. I mean, the multiplicity of how much alcohol, ethanol, will actually affect your brain impulsivity and aggression is almost tenfold compared to any other drug, even when in comparison to anabolic androgenic steroids. And another reason why I think you should have freedom to do with what your body is, because we have these sort of misconceptions that testosterone is going to make you aggressive when people drink their ass off every single night of the week and seem to have no problem with domestic assault being a commonplace in America. Needless to say, I don't think these steroid allegations are plausible here. I don't mean to say that he's even wrong in this case. I don't know what the context of his situation was. I certainly do believe he is using some form of performance-enhancing drugs, like I said, probably testosterone and other oral 17-alkylated compounds like Winstrol, maybe Anavar. But in reality, I don't think that those things had any implication with his aggressive acts or mood disorders up until this point. So, conclusion coming at you, what can you take away from this video? Well, I would understand a couple things. One, Mayers doesn't look like a great person. Two, I wouldn't drink, especially on a night out with your girl. Three, yes, we have some research that indicates that potential steroid use can cause more aggression and almost this outward pushing of people around you. You don't want to be social in some aspects, but I don't think that that's going to hold up in practical application. When you look at the field of people using steroids, we don't typically see that being an issue in person, nor do we see it as an issue in isolation, but more so in a field with multiple variables such as alcohol, etc., etc. So I don't think that steroids are to blame for this one, but do I think he is taking steroids? Well, Jonathan Mayers is on the Tremboloni sandwiches, let's be honest, folks. I just think it is important to stand up for the people who are using steroids and actually are really infamous. Look at The Rock, for example. Look at Mark Wahlberg, for example. I mean, any of those guys are going to be very infamous and also use steroids in conjunction with their reputation. So I hope you enjoyed that video and you were able to take something away from it. If you did, I would really, really appreciate if you'd send me a like down below and maybe share this video with your friends so that they can learn more about what steroids do to aggression. Probably your girlfriend. Don't go out and drink with your girlfriend, okay? That's the moral of the story.